So, we're going to go through CV scenes. I'm very, very conscious that a CV is not a very exciting topic. So hopefully we'll change that a little bit and get a little bit more engaged. I do want to be as interactive as possible, so we'll ask for a show of hands at different points. So if you can work with me, it'll be really appreciated because it just makes it a little bit more engaging and hopefully gets you an awful lot more value from it. So just to give you a bit of background and the reason we do this, because ultimately, I suppose, one of the big things I say to everyone is there is no straight line to any career. It is always going to be an up, down, twist, turn, push, pull, and hopefully you're not getting too many negative aspects to that, but there's always going to be those twists and turns along the way, and so how you leverage them in the right way. So for myself, I actually started out as a carpenter, believe it or not. As a carpenter, I didn't really enjoy that particular role and probably didn't align with my values as was being mentioned a few moments ago. When I looked at it and did loads of psychometric testing and tried to figure out all the strategies that weren't really available when I started out in my career, we started to piece them together and find a way to decide how you should actually understand what your career path should look like and build career strategies. I found that I should actually never be the person that uses power tools or a saw for that matter, and thankfully I got away with all my limbs and did not injure anyone else, more importantly. After that, I then went and worked internationally on a number of different roles, specifically in consulting, management consulting, and then in recruitment. So as part of that, I did an awful lot of leadership coaching and working internally and externally with individuals to basically achieve their own objectives. And then as in 2021, in a bit of response to COVID and what was happening in the market, we actually launched the Career Coach. Since then, we've also launched other brands, and today we're delighted to announce we're actually launching TCC Galway. We announced it yesterday, and the head of Galway is actually going to be here as well. So we're expanding both domestically and internationally, and the reason for that is because we found a really strategic approach in how to help people achieve their career objectives in a very simplistic way, but more importantly in a specific time frame. And I'll talk about why that's really important in a moment, because it's not always about getting there quickly, but it is about getting there in the time frame that we've devised. So some of the clients as well that you'll see the logos up here, some of which will probably be present outside and certainly at other Jobs Expos, we actually work with them on their strategic approach to finding talent, because there is a gap in the market between how candidates approach the market and how companies go to find talent. And our objective, which you'll see, is to bridge that gap. So that's enough about a little bit about ourselves. The programs we focus in on is our Job Seeker program, which helps people secure their job in an average of 30 days. Now, some people take a little bit longer, some people take a little bit shorter, but ultimately our goal is to help people get there as quickly as possible. We also work on career change focus, which is basically about people that have followed a specific path, which was being mentioned a moment ago, maybe wasn't for them, realised it later on, and have now decided to put their head a bit above the parapet and go, actually, what is for me, but I don't really know, how do I figure that out? We work with them intimately on how we can put in an effective roadmap for themselves. And we also work with individuals on taking that next step in their career, whatever that may look like, whether that's moving from a very senior position into a more senior position, whether that's taking the very first step into a senior position, or looking at just simply how they progress their skill set. So certainly enough about us. We'll jump straight in. So I always like to start with career strategy, because before you can build a CV, you need to have a career strategy. As a quick show of hands, who would have a career strategy or would say they've thought about it before? Awesome, we've got a couple. Cool. It is getting more and more, and it's not a criticism in any way, shape or form if you haven't done it. The reason why it's so important is because the old saying, you fail to plan, plan to fail, is really, really important, because ultimately if you don't know where you're going, it's very, very difficult to build the tools to get you there. Yeah, so making sure you actually have an effective career strategy is really, really important. Our own firm belief, the recipe to success, is the right strategy with the right effort will get you the right outcome. One without the other, unfortunately, will not get you there. You may get there by mistake or by chance or by luck or whatever it may be. The challenge is that it doesn't give you the outcome or the tools you need to be successful long term. So both together. Now, the thing I would say for all of you, and hopefully you'll agree, actually being here is a massive step in terms of towards effort, right? So if you're not getting the right outcomes at the moment, it may just be the strategy. Don't get me wrong, when it comes to effort, we can always turn it up a little bit more. We can always look for that extra 1%, but certainly being here also shows that you're already taking big steps in order to figure out what the next step for you looks like, whatever that may be. Once we've done that, to build an effective career strategy, the value it's going to bring, or once we have an effective career strategy today, the value it will bring is it gives you clarity. It means you know where you're going, which actually is half the battle. It gives you the keen focus that you'll need. It means that you're going to be adaptable to what's going to come up in the market, because we need to be, like I said, there's going to be twists, turns, push, pulls all along the way. And most importantly, it gives you the action, or it helps you take the action you need in order to be successful. So, Who here has heard of a SWOT analysis before? Love it. Anyone use it to on their skills before? Mainly in a business concept we've probably come across though. Reason we do it in a skill set, and we're going to go through 5 specific steps to build an effective career strategy, and SWOT analysis is one of the most important ones. Because if we look at a SWOT analysis when it comes to our skill set, and it's something we do regularly with our clients, but also for ourselves, because perfect example right now, who's used ChatGPT? Okay, good. Numbers are actually always in a bit, and an average probably in the last 6 months. 12 months ago, no one was really using it, which is mad. But if we think about that as an example, AI in general is becoming a really, really big thing in the market. It's going to add an awful lot of value, but there's also going to bring an awful lot of challenges in terms of job displacement if it's not managed correctly. So right now, it's a threat to an awful lot of different sectors. However, if we leverage it correctly, it can be not only an opportunity, it'll be a strength of ours, which will also lead to an awful lot more results for ourselves long term. And obviously, it comes back to the opportunity piece, where it actually opens up more doors than closes. Does that make sense? So doing this on a regular basis will actually allow us to identify our transferable skills. The reason we need to understand our transferable skills is, with AI in general, it's actually going to change about 375 million jobs in the next 6 years. That's what's being projected. And it's probably going to be more than that, if I'm being brutally honest, based on all the McKinsey statistics right now. What that means is, how jobs look now is going to be very, very different in the future. So making sure that we look at our transferable skills and how we can be, going back to our career strategy, be adaptable to what's happening in the market will allow us to actually have a future-proof career roadmap. Does that make sense? Awesome. So once we've done that, once we've got our transferable skills mapped out, once we know where we're going, we've got our clarity, we then will need to set SMART goals. Who's heard of SMART goals before? Who's used them regularly? One. Cool. We do. The benefit behind them, loads of people hear them. We don't always use them really effectively. And it's actually always about consistency with it, right? So one of the big things that we probably always do is a little bit of the SMART, I would call it, not maybe the SMART. And the reason for that is because actually we're not putting a time-bound piece on it. And that's why it's so important. It's not always about getting there immediately or in the next week or the next 2 weeks, whatever it is, but knowing the time frame we want to get there within, and is that realistic to do it within that time frame, is really, really important to actually being successful for 2 reasons. Number one, because you have a clear roadmap. But number 2, if you don't get there in that time frame, and that time frame was never realistic in the first place, the negativity it actually brings for yourself in terms of your own achievements and your own viewpoint is actually very detrimental to your own success. So making sure we manage that in the right way is really, really important. Once we've done that, we then need to research and explore the different job search. So if we're looking at changing career, or if we're looking at mapping out our career for the first time, if we're just graduating, whatever it may be, it's always about researching and exploring the day-to-day activities you're going to do. Quick show of hands, any accountants in the room? Enjoy it? Cool, good. Usually when I ask that question, it's about 50-50 or not at all. There's a large percentage of accountants now actually a little bit worried about AI in general, but also that don't enjoy the day-to-day activities, because in a lot of aspects, previously they wouldn't have been available. Now I have loads of friends that are accountants, family members, some of which absolutely love it, some of which absolutely hate it. And we tend to find that sales is very similar. Some people absolutely love it and some people absolutely hate it, right? But it's actually because of the activities they do day to day grind them down a bit that they wouldn't have known about because the information wasn't available in the market. We're now in a great time where we can actually research every single job out there and see what the day to day looks like. If that day to day is really enjoyable to us in terms of how it sounds, and we're about 85 to 90% of the way happy with those day to day activities, we're in a really good place. If we're less than that, if we're kind of 60%, 50%, 40%, we're in the wrong place, and we need to start looking at the other opportunities. Once we've done that, we now need to continually skill develop. So we want to continue to develop those skills and hone them. That doesn't mean continuous education and spending loads of money on different things, but it does mean staying true to what's happening in the market, understanding what's coming up in your specific field to make sure, like perfect example, in a development aspect, AI was obviously a very big thing, but equally, multiple other languages come on stream, multiple other automations come into play, how to stay ahead of that area. Same when it comes to financial planning, same when it comes to anything to do with banking. There's loads of things that happen. Unless we stay ahead of the curve, unfortunately, we fall behind it, and that actually has a massive impact on us. And then it's continually networking. Obviously, you know how to network because you're here today to some degree, but it's about continually doing that because you've no idea in terms of whether it's LinkedIn or in person, the people you meet, the impact they will have on your career. It's very difficult to know. The benefit to know is that they will have some impact. Either You might meet with them and you share best practice with each other. That helps yourselves develop. You might hire them at some point in the future because you might be in that position, or they might hire you and create an opportunity for you. So networking on a consistent basis, no matter what stage of your career you're at, is so important. Your network is actually your net worth. CVs. So once we've built our career strategy, now we have the approach that we're trying to do. We know where we're going. We know what we're trying to achieve. Now we need the tools to get there, and CV is the first point of that. So who knows what a CV is for? Or what it is, if we start there. What's a CV? You're absolutely not wrong. The big thing, if we boil it down, right, if we look at what a CV is, and we've passed out, and Martin was good enough handing out flyers earlier on, it's a sales document, right? So it's a sales document with a purpose. What's the outcome? It's trying to show you as an individual what's your unique proposition, why you are valuable to our company, what you've done previously, and how that would convey what you could do for that business moving forward, because that's ultimately how decisions are made in any organization. Why do we need one? What's the objective of it? What's it trying to do for us? Get a better job? Yeah, sure. Any other reason? Sell yourself, yeah. It's to get you an interview, right? So the CV will only take you to the interview stage. It can't take you past that. As soon as we get there, then it's up to us. And if anyone owns presentation earlier on, he's talking about what the 10 laws of interviewing. It's really important. So that's what we need to implement after that. But the CV is to get you there. So that's what it's ultimately for. So a CV is not for us. It is for the person reading it, and it has to convey very succinctly why you're the right candidate, because you've got about 5.8 seconds to get that across, which is a tiny amount of time, because ultimately the people that are sitting there screening those CVs, if it gets to them, which I'll explain in a moment, is they are time constrained to actually find the right candidates. So here's the biggest challenge. Heard an applicant tracking system? Everyone heard an ATS? Yeah, majority? Cool. So about 75% of CVs are not seen by human eyes. So if you're receiving an automatic rejection within a couple of minutes or even a couple of hours of submitting a CV, sometimes up to 24 hours, you receive an automatic rejection email. Anyone received an automatic rejection? It's an ATS doing it. It's nothing to do with a human actually seeing it. It's being qualified based on what the system is saying. So the system says no, essentially. And that's because they either do a formatting or anything else, and we're going to go through those CV sins now in a moment. But the challenge with ATS is they're not that advanced. They're getting more advanced, which is great, but they're very, very slow to adapt because people have implemented them in businesses, not calibrated them correctly, and don't update them, because actually the people that manage them at a much lower level, they're just simply there to churn through CVs. So they just capture as many CVs, they grade them really quickly, and then it spits back no for most, and then it'll grade, if people meet a certain grade, it'll then be passed to someone to review, again at a much lower level. All right, so it's really, really important that we know how to leverage our skill set against an ATS and how we overcome the challenges that they're going to present. So, anyone have a CV that looks like this? 1, 2, okay, cool. Anyone think we shouldn't have a CV that looks like that? So here's the challenge, right? With an applicant tracking system, we have no knowledge of which applicant tracking system, and there's hundreds of them, that the company is using. And that's not your job, nor should you have to, right? What we do need to understand is that applicant tracking systems, for the most part, certainly in Ireland and the UK, will see CVs that look like this as an image, which will mean that it'll look like this in their system. The system can't compute it because it can't lift the information off it, because it's seen as a flat image. So all that's going to come up in the system. Now, if you think of a recruiter, I'm not saying that recruiters are poor individuals that have a really tough job, but they do, like everyone else does. But if you think of a recruiter that's sitting there reviewing 500 to 1,000 CVs in a very quick time frame, and their objective is to remove people from the process as quickly as possible, they're not going to move forward with a CV like that. They're not going to move forward even with a CV that makes simple mistakes like this. This was a bartender that submitted their CV, the formatting was off, and even though most of it was aligned, it didn't pick up their name, it picked up a drink that they make, Bloody Mary. And unfortunately would immediately remove them from the process. They are looking for reasons to remove people from the process. That's not a negative slant on anyone. That is purposely because they have so many CVs to review, they have to find the quickest pathway to get there. Does that make sense? So, some of the more CV scenes we see, who would use the same CV for each role? Who would tailor it? Good. We'll get there now in a minute. So, sending the wrong file, and then the next one will actually make sense, will tie us very much to this. People have done this, and we've had it ourselves, or someone's actually sent us a menu for a burrito bar. Unfortunately, it was a good burrito. They didn't get the job, of course, but same thing here. They sent a Jamie Oliver recipe. All right, it's not going to get you there. Naming your documents, knowing what you're doing and when you're doing it, but applying for so many different jobs and not actually and understanding why you're applying for them is probably one of the biggest CV sins, and we talk about it regularly. But it is so important to understand why you're applying for a job and not just, as we would say, just blasting out loads of CVs to hundreds of roles that may or may not be relevant to you. So, naming a CV correctly. If you're tailoring your CV, the first impression people get is actually the name of your CV, because that's the first thing they see on the document, right? Before they even open it. So naming a CV very simply of your name, the job you're going for, and the company you're applying for will make it, even if you haven't tailored anything else, will make it look tailored. All right? That's the first impression that they get when they get an email from you, or when you apply online, depending to your platform. The next one is actually using keywords. Who uses keywords? Why do you think it's important to use keywords? Anyone know? Yeah, absolutely right. So in their ATS and also in any of the job portals that you use, whether it's Indeed or anything else, they actually have CV banks that sit on the back of them where they're stored. Recruiters can actually gain access to it for a fee, and they can search. They used to use Boolean strings years ago. It's now much easier. It's a filtration process, but ultimately it's based on keywords. So if I'm looking for an accountant, with this skill set, with this experience, in this particular location that's applied in the last week or uploaded their CV in the last week, I can find them very, very quickly. Here's a challenge. If someone hasn't done that, they will not appear high enough in that search for me to see them. As a quick show of hands, who would go past page 1 or 2 on Google when they're looking for something online? 1. Recruiters won't either. So if you're applying and you're not visible in their applicant tracking system or on LinkedIn, they're not going to go past that stage to find you. They're literally going to move on. They're going to find the people they're looking for that are relevant to them, that have taken the steps that they need to be visible, to then engage them in the process and shortlist them to move them forward in the process. Does that make sense? So, including irrelevant personal information. Now, I'll give you examples of irrelevant personal information as well in a moment. But including irrelevant personal information is a very key thing that people do regularly. And actually, no matter what market, and I talk about it all the time, there's unconscious bias. No matter what location you are based in the world, there is unconscious bias. It's about trying to leverage unconscious bias for your benefit as opposed to your detriment. All right? And unfortunately, we don't give it, by including irrelevant personal information, it actually leans more to the negative side than to the positive. And I'll explain that in a moment. So here's Jenny. Just a quick test, see who knows what CV sins we've committed. So Jenny has committed loads of CV sins. Anyone hazard a guess how many she's committed? Yeah. Very good. Yeah, so maybe you say about 5, 6? And I'll say higher or lower? Say again? Her email? Okay, cool. Love it. So Jenny's committed 8 overall. You're very good though. All right. 6 is, that's the highest, and very succinctly. So we don't use a picture in Ireland and the UK. We do in other locations, just not in Ireland and the UK. Always use a professional email, never any nicknames, so well done on that one. Full address not needed. Believe it or not, there's unconscious bias that comes with where you're actually living. I've had it myself personally. I'm from Tala, still live there now, but I actually found unconscious bias against it when I applied for certain roles. And when I took it off, I actually got higher responses. This obviously years ago, but the issue remains the same. Similarly, date of birth is not needed. They'll make judgment calls on your age demographic. Your marital status not needed. You don't need to include your nationality. A personalized URL is never going to work very, very well in that particular concept. Your name is well enough, and certainly your gender is not needed. All right? It makes no difference. All they need to know is, can you do the job? And the information to get there is none of them. Yeah? Can you do the job, and how do you get there? And ultimately, the only way to convey that is, what have you done previously to showcase how valuable you can be to that organization moving forward? So there's a quick synopsis of all the CV sins we just discussed. So what you shouldn't do and what you should do. If anyone wants to grab that, please fire ahead. Pace okay for everyone? I'm moving too quick? Cool, thanks. Good. Well. Excellent, okay. Cool, so CV writing tips. So, we're going to go into, really importantly, this particular CV. Who says it's, and I do this regularly, and hopefully with systems moving a bit better now, we're going to get really, really glossy looking CVs again, but right now, who would say that's a basic looking CV? Oh, okay, good. It's positive. It is a basic looking CV from a standpoint of if we want to look very visually appealing. Normally I get a few hands saying, yeah, it looks basic, and it is, but it's functional, and that's the most important thing. I don't care how good it looks, it's more about does it get me the outcome. Again, think about who's it for. It's not for me, it's for the end person, yeah? Or the system that we have to get through, that devil of an ATS. This CV particularly got someone a job in 2 weeks, all right? They weren't extremely senior, they weren't extremely sought after, they were working in a tech, going into tech companies, which was 6 months ago, or 8 months ago actually, so apologies, in a very turbulent time. So it's something that we know works regularly and in a very quick time frame. And to build that for yourselves, if we look at it the more more in depth, should I say, professional profile, who has one? Yeah, good, okay. So professional profile, about 6 lines at the top. I mentioned earlier you got 5.8 seconds to grab somebody's attention. We've done heat maps on this. 95% of a recruiter's eye line, so where their mouse would sit and normally their cursor is, I don't know if you've ever heard of heat maps, but essentially it's how people figure out where to put offers on websites because of where your cursor sits. It's typically how you read, all right? Their eye line would sit around professional profile for the majority of that time frame to figure out if you're good enough. Then they'll move to qualifications, then they'll move to key achievements because they can sum up very, very quickly, should they move you forward or should they read on in the process or remove you from the process? That's the objective. So from our point of view, we want to make sure that we convey all of that really quickly so they can see it immediately to understand what have we done previously that then will allow us to get to showcase how we can add value to that company moving forward, because that's what they're trying to figure out, because that's their job ultimately. Whether it's the ATS or the person reviewing it when it gets to them before they progress it to a hiring manager or before they present it to a company for you if it's through an external agency. Once we've done that, we then move on to career history. To do that, we need to make sure we're very clear. We don't make assumptions that people know. Even if you've worked for Apple, Google, Salesforce, doesn't matter. You still convey what company you worked for, what they do, because there could have been multiple departments within that because they're all massive. What that department does and what your role within that department is. And then you should have anywhere from 3 to 5 key achievements. Now, if it's your most latest role, 5 to 6 is usually the best approach. All right, and you should do this for every role in the last 10 years. But anything outside of the last 10 years needs to go into additional experience. The reason it goes into additional experience is because ultimately, if you've done something 10 years ago, the fact is you've either reused those skills again, and they've already captured them in the experience you have in the last 10 years, or if you haven't used it, you're going to have to retrain in it. Yeah, in the same way, if I went back and used a saw now, I would definitely cut my fingers off. Yeah. So making sure that you convey the information. So that's just a top line information. Simply summarize. Start, end date, role, and company. That's enough. You don't need to go into any more detail than that. And then, of course, any other information. We always get asked as well, references upon request, all that sort of stuff, you don't need to include. Yeah? You can provide references. If people want the references, they'll ask for them. Yeah, you don't need to include it. It just takes up space. Now, the advert. Who would actually look at an advert and compare with their CV before they apply? Deadly. Couple. Good. So the advert is actually the secret sauce, right? Because it tells you how they talk about certain skill sets. Yeah? So how they talk about certain competencies that they want to see. And the very quick way of tailoring a CV is to look at the qualification, the experience, and the skills. The key requirements that they ask for, the desirable requirements, they're nice to have. They're not something they absolutely require for you to do the role. The key requirements of what they want, yeah? So making sure that we convey the information in the same way that they've explained it in the job description is really important because it conveys 2 things. 1, that your values and way of talking align with theirs. 2, that actually the information that you're sharing and the way in which you convey your own skill set is similar to what they're looking for. And it immediately aligns with how the applicant tracking system is set up to grade your CV. Does that make sense? Deadly. So once we've done all that, we should be able to access what's known as the hidden job market. Anyone hear of the hidden job market? Yeah? Cool. The reason why I bring it up is with the hidden job market, it's actually about being applicable to jobs you haven't applied for. So 40% of jobs that are available in the market are actually posted online, which means there's a whole other 60% that you're not seeing, that you can't apply for directly. And that comes back to the fact of what we said earlier on about the applicant tracking systems, the job boards that you're applying on, and LinkedIn. They're searching, they're actually doing headhunting, going out direct to market without actually posting the jobs online to find candidates. If you've aligned your CV in the right way, you have set up your skills, your experience in the way that business wants to hear it. So when your CV is stored in their applicant tracking system, when they go searching for candidates like you that fit a specific dynamic of or demographic of the role that they're looking for, your CV will appear really highly in that search, which means you'll be considered for a role that you haven't actually applied for. Does that make sense? So that's how you can actually access jobs you're not actually going to be able to see online or apply for in general. All right. Now, the benefit is one of the things that we're launching today. This is actually a career survival kit. On top of the other piece in a moment. So just if anyone wants snaps of that, it's just a piece that we always look at and that are really, really important. Cool. Good to go. So we normally play a video. I don't know if we have time on it. I think we might have just run out. You sure? Just a quick video. So we've got it with us today. We only launched it in the last few weeks. It's called Career Navigator. It is an AI-driven tool that actually helps you tailor your CV, your LinkedIn, and ultimately get ready for interview assessments. So I'll just see if we can bring it up. It has to be brought up on another page, I think. I don't know if it's open. Let's see. No, they haven't opened it up. It's all good. We can show it at another time. I can take questions, though, probably easier. And we will absolutely show it. Our team, if anyone's seen our flyers today, to scan the QR code, anyone seen them? Few, no? If you scan your QR code, it automatically brings your CV up into the system. We can scan it for you here today. It takes 20 seconds, less even, probably about 4 or 5 seconds to be fair, to show you exactly where the gaps are and how you would rank in the market for the specific roles you're applying for. The benefit behind it is it immediately shows you insights that you won't be able to get online, and nor even with the most effective coaches there, it will take you 20 minutes to walk through. It'll tell you in seconds exactly what the gaps are, and we do it ongoing with our clients because it means they can readily tailor their CV to the specific roles they're applying for in a very quick time frame. And they can also do it in their own time, more importantly, which means that they can apply without the help of everyone all the time, guiding them through it. Which is a really impactful tool. And of course then, just for ourselves, the CV scan tool is here, our QR code is here, so you can actually upload your CV if you wish. Our team are outside wearing these t-shirts. They'll be more than happy to walk through it with you in real time. And for anyone that joins any of our programs today, whether a job seeker, career change, or career progression, there's actually €100 off. All right, because while it's our busiest time of year and it is coming into getting even busier, we want to make sure that we're working with individuals that need the support and that are having those challenges along the way. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it, and hopefully you found that impactful.